Welcome to Toyota Time with Timmy the Toolman and Sean and special returning guest Tony. We're back to finish up his rear bumper install. We got the main bumper on, but now we're going to show you how to get the rear swing out in place. Tony already drilled some holes in one side of the bumper so we can attach the bracket that holds the swing arm onto the bumper. I'm going to let Tony explain what size drill bit he used and how he went about doing it.
So the Savage rear bumper allows for the swing out to go on the left or the right side, or both. And I chose to do on the right or the passenger side. So the bumper comes with pre-drilled pilot holes from Savage, 6 of them for the right side passenger and left side driver. I decided to put this swing out on the passenger side, so I drilled those holes out, those pilot holes, to 3/8 inch diameter.
These are the holes that Tony drilled out. There's 4 on the back face, and then there's 2 on the top. And as you can see on the driver's side, you can see those pilot holes that Tony was talking about, which enables you to just get out your 3/8 drill bit and use the pilot hole to drill your holes. So let's take a look at all the hardware that comes with the swing out. Starting right here, here's the arm that helps control the swing arm out and back in. You have some hardware that is used to affix the swing out to the main bumper. This thing attaches to this. This is the bump stop, so when you close it, it doesn't slam into the bumper. This piece right here attaches to this main arm, and then also this piece attaches to the main arm, and you're going to attach the spare tire carrier with 4 bolts, washers, and nuts to this part right here. Then we have the license plate holder that's going to be held on to the swing out with a couple bolts, washers, and nuts. And then here's some parts that are going to hold this main arm onto the bumper. You've got the bracket, you've got the bolt that slides through the bracket, capturing these heims, utilizing these nuts and lock washers to attach this arm to the bracket. And then we're going to utilize the 6 bolts, washers, and nuts to bolt this bracket to the passenger side of Tony's bumper. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get our heim, we're going to get one of the nuts, and we're going to screw it all the way on, bottom it out. And we're going to do the same with the other one. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to slide the heim onto this large bolt. We're going to slide both of the conical washers off, and then we're going to slide one of the heims on. Then we're going to take one of the conical washers with the tapered side facing the heim, and we're going to put one of them on next. We're going to slide the bolt through the bracket in this orientation. You can see this notch right here, so we're going to slide it in this direction. The bolt into this bracket is a little bit of a tight fit, so I'm going to spread some multi-purpose grease on the shaft of this bolt. I'm also just going to put a little bit of grease in the inner bore of the bracket. Now I'm just going to smear my finger in there and work the grease in the inner bore. Okay, now that we got it lubricated, I'm going to try to slide this back in. And it went in much easier. Lubrication is your friend. Next, we're going to get another one of the conical washers on this side, and you slide it on with the flat side facing the bracket, the tapered side facing outward. Now we got to get our other heim on. So we're just a little bit confused because this big bolt did come with this washer, but when we're watching the little time-lapse video that Savage provides, they don't show utilizing this big flat washer. They just show putting the nylon lock nut right on like this with no washer. Until we find out otherwise, we're not going to utilize that flat washer. So now we're going to take this bracket over to the bumper and we're going to get it attached with 6 bolts and nuts. Alright, so Tony's going to get the bracket in place on the passenger side of his bumper. It's going to attach with a bolt and washer on the front side, and then on the back side you're going to put another washer and the nylon lock nut. So Tony's working on the top 2 first. Now he's going to work on getting the 4 on the rear face connected.
ones have to be elevated a little bit to get access to these horizontal bolts. There you go. Okay, last one. Okay, all started.
Okay, so Tony has all 6 bolts attaching the bracket started, and now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get the arm that attaches to these heims onto here. Tony's going to slide the arm on. You can see that it goes in this fashion, this facing the rear of the vehicle. He's going to slide it through the provided holes. So now he's got it hanging on there. Now we're going to open it up and show you how to fix it. He's going to put the provided lock washer on first and then the large nut. And then we're going to do the same with the bottom one. Lock washer, then the nut. We're just going to leave these hand tight for right now, and then we're going to move on to the next step. We're going to get this support arm attached to the main arm, and then we're also going to get this plate that the locking mechanism attaches to. This plate goes behind this support arm, and then we use the longest 3 bolts that the kit comes with to attach both of those to the main arm. So we cinched up these 3 bolts. It's a 7/32 Allen head, and on the back side it's a 9/16 nut. I just used my little 1/4" ratchet with a 7/32 Allen socket. On the back side you can see you have limited access to get a straight shot with the socket, so I just used an open-end wrench to get on each nut going through these holes. The centermost one you can get a socket on, but the one to either side is problematic, so that's why I just used a open-end 9/16 for all of them. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to get this bumper installed. The video shows getting it installed on this side, closer to the center of the vehicle, in this hole right here. So we're going to go from the back side, and then we're going to put the supplied washer and then the nylon lock nut on. And then we're going to use a 1/2" drive socket to tighten it up. So now we're going to get the locking mechanism attached to the 4 rightmost holes, these 4 right here. We have a short Allen head bolt and a nylon lock nut. We're going to get one of them started. And we're going to do the same with the other 4. So the Allen head bolt is a 3/16 head, and the nut on the back side is a 1/2". So I'm just going to use my ratchet again with the 3/16 Allen head and a socket on the back. We're going to get this collar onto the bumper. This collar is what the locking mechanism connects to lock the swing arm in place. We have to break the halves apart, and they are held together with 1/4" Allen bolts. So we're going to take all 4 out and then put the halves around the bumper and put it in place. So we have the halves taken apart, and now we're going to get this onto the bumper. So looking at where we could have fixed this, we might actually have to adjust this arm further over, because the bumper has holes right here. It doesn't have access to the main pipe of the bumper all the way across. There's these slots. We can't just get it anywhere we want, because we couldn't place it here. We have to place it somewhere where we can get both halves around the bumper. So we might actually have to adjust that tire carrier arm to where the locking mechanism will work properly. So after figuring out that we couldn't get the locking mechanism in the right spot, we now have the tire carrier over more to the right side, the passenger side, and we have 4 holes exposed on the end of the arm. In addition to these 3 bolts that are going to hold the arm on, there's 2 on the top. There's 1 on either side of the arm. So same thing, bolt with the washer on top, washer and a nut on the opposite side. So we now have this tightened in its new spot. Before we make our final adjustment to get the locking mechanism right, because you can adjust how far you have a throw with this U-shaped bolt, and you can change the position of the bracket on the bumper We're gonna tighten up these bolts now. These are gonna be fully tightened to where we can make that adjustment for the locking mechanism. So we're gonna get on this with an 1 1/8" socket and tighten these up. We have the nuts on the backside bottomed out all the way against the heim. Okay, that top one's tight, and then we're gonna do the same with the bottom. All right, we're back on the next day because it got dark on us and it started raining. So we're now at Tony's place in Morgan Hill. I just want to do some clarifying of how we got this tire carrier support arm onto the main arm, and then got the plate that the locking mechanism connects to onto the main arm. The kit comes with 3 longer bolts, longer than all the other ones. We use those 3 long bolts for this application. The tire carrier goes on with the plate behind it, and then we put the 3 bolts through. The plate is also held on by 2 bolts that come up from the underside and then go through the arm. So we put the bolt in through the bottom and the washer and nylon lock nut on the inside of the arm. And those are also the same bolt, a 7/32 Allen head with a 9/16 nut. And we did the same thing. We used the open end wrench in the arm, and then we tightened it from below with the 7/32 Allen head. It took a little trial and error to figure out where this spare tire carrier needed to go on the arm, and what we determined that was going to work well was having it so 4 holes are showing to the left of it. And then let me show you where we attached the hooks that the locking mechanism grabs onto. So because you are sort of limited of where you can attach it based off of the way the bumper is made, where the plate is, there's these openings. So at first we were going to end up having to have it right where that weld is, so we had to move everything over to the right, and that's what caused us to have to move the tire carrier over more to the right also. You can see how close we have it to this side of this gap. Coming over from the far right side on the passenger side, we're in the second hole close to the left side. When you're getting this thing set up, get the arm in the closed position, and this will allow you to get it square with the locking mechanism, because with the way it's made, you could have it twisted and not being square to the locking mechanism. What I'm talking about is when you slide this over, it's at a right angle to it and it's going to grab properly. If these hooks were rotated up a little bit or down a little bit, then the U-bolt isn't going to grab each hook equally. That's how we got the proper adjustment. You have these 1/4 inch drive Allen heads, 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom. What I did is just kept them a little loose. I got the hooks in the right orientation on the bumper, and then I locked them in place. The next thing that you want to do is you want to make an adjustment with this nylon lock nut to where the locking mechanism locks and it's not overly tight and it's not overly loose. So you have to take a 1/2 inch socket and you keep on manipulating the position of the nut on the rod to where when you lock it, it locks nice and firm, but not so tight that it's really hard to lock and so tight that it's really hard to unlock. So you just have to do a little trial and error to where you like it. Once you got it to where you want, then you lock it in place by taking this 1/2 inch nut and tightening it up against the rod here, and then that locks it in place to where nothing's going to come loose. To tighten this one, I just used a 1/2 inch open end wrench and got it on there, just like that. Now that we got the locking mechanism adjusted properly, we're taking a look at the arm in relation to the bumper, and we're noticing that we have a bigger gap here than we have right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to make an adjustment at the bracket here. Because you have some adjustability here, we can actually bring this down a little bit, which should adjust the arm to where it's fitting nicer and parallel with the main bumper. So we're going to use our 1 1/8 socket. We're going to loosen this nut, give us a little wiggle room, and then we should be able to screw this out. We might have to loosen the bottom one too, but basically we want to move this bracket this way a little bit to where it's going to drop the far side down to make it parallel with the main bumper. So after making the necessary adjustments by first loosening this big nut and turning this one the direction I needed to make the arm more equal, now we have a nice even gap all the way across the whole arm. After you get the proper adjustment of the arm, you want to lock these nuts down. They are 1 1/8 inch. So whether you do it with an open end wrench or a socket, it's up to you. One on the top and then one on the bottom. You also want to tighten up this bolt that attaches the arm to the bracket. The top part is 1 1/8 and then the bottom nut is 1 1/16. I just got on there with 2 different sockets and tightened it up just really snug, no torque spec. This bolt assembly did come with a big flat washer, but after talking to the owner, Roy, you don't need it. You're not putting that flat washer between the bolt head and the heim, and neither are you putting the washer between the nut and the heim on the bottom. The next thing we're going to get attached to this support arm is the spare tire carrier. The spare tire carrier fits in between these 2 parts of the bracket. You might find it's a little tight. You just have to use your man strength and spread it out a little bit. I have my helper here, Ash, decided to show up because he lives in Morgan Hill too, and he has a Savage off-road bumper. So what you do is you get another couple of the supplied bolts and nuts and washers, and you put one here and one here. And Ash will demonstrate, because you have this slotted hole, you can tilt the tire however you want, depending what you like. And then you could also slide it back a little bit and get the tire closer to the rear hatch or further away from the rear hatch. So there's some nice adjustability built into this tire carrier. We got the tire carrier attached to this arm with the same Allen bolts with a 9/16 nylon nut on the back side. So now we're going to get the strut in position. It attaches right here in the corner of the bracket that holds the arm on, and then you use this triangular shaped plate and you put it where you want it, depending on how far you want this arm to swing out. So obviously you need it to open up wide enough to where you can get your hatch open, but maybe you don't want it swinging way the hell out here to where it might be into traffic or something, say if you're on the side of the road. So we're going to try to get this to where it opens up pretty much in line with the body, but not excessively far out to where it's sticking way out there. It comes with some supplied nylon lock nuts. The stud is already attached to the strut, so we just have to drop it into here. The strut is at its max travel. If we put it there, it will go there. If we bring it in a little bit more, it looks like it has to be on these holes right here. If we want it out further, we can put it over here, but it looks like it wants to live in these holes right about there. So I'm gonna grab the bolt with the washer to the bottom. So with both bolts coming in from the bottom, we're gonna put our flat washers on top, and then we're gonna put a couple nylon lock nuts. And these again are a 9/16 nut with a 7/32 Allen head bolt. We're just going to cinch these up. Now that we have the strut bracket attached to the arm, we're going to get our strut in place. The body of the strut connects up to the arm side, and then the rod side connects up to the bracket. The strut is in its fully extended position, and then you just drop it into the holes. On the bottom, you get a flat washer and the nylon lock nut started. And then to tighten up the fasteners, I'm going to use a 1/4 inch drive with a 1/2 inch socket. And then I'm going to use a 1/2 inch open end wrench to hold the top part. So you get your open end wrench on the top and your socket on the bottom and cinch it up. And then we'll do the same with this side. Alright, so now the strut is firmly attached to the arm and to the bracket. So now with the strut attached to the arm, when you open this up, and especially since you don't have the weight of the tire on here now, it's going to fling open with a fair amount of force. Maybe until you get the tire on there, ease it out. Don't let it just come slamming out against the strut. Just know that without a lot of weight on there, this is going to come with a fair amount of force pretty quick. The final thing you'll want to get on here is your license plate hanger. Depending on where you put your tire and how big it is going to determine where you can adjust this. But basically these two holes of the bracket go on top and you figure out where you want it. For right now, we're going to put this on Tony's arm here with two holes exposed to the right. So we're going to again use the same old Allen head bolts with a lock nut on the underside, and we're going to get this on. Okay, so now the license plate holder is attached to the arm, and this is what it looks like from the rear. Your license plate light goes right here. How you wire it is up to you. If you want to know one way how to wire it, you can consult the rear CBI dual swing out bumper install that I did on my rig, and I show how I tapped into the wiring for the trailer hitch to wire my license plate light. So check out that video if you want to learn that way to wire it. So here's what the final product looks like. Here's the passenger side. Coming around to the rear, we have the swing arm attached to the passenger side. You got your license plate holder. You've got the spare tire carrier, the locking mechanism. You got your hitch. And then coming around to the driver's side, and then we'll give you a shot from the back. It's a pretty good looking bumper. All right, we're all done with this job. We just got done showing you how to get the swing arm on your Savage off-road rear bumper. Like we said at the beginning, you have a choice. You could put it on the driver's side or you could put it on the passenger side like Tony did. Savage also offers a dual swing out option, so if you wanted dual swing outs, you have that option also. The installation was fairly straightforward. The 2-minute video that he had is a little bit hard to follow. We had to keep on replaying it and replaying it. What we found out from Savage Off-Road is he's going to create a PDF file of instructions you can follow rather than having to watch that 2-minute video of the dancing bolts and nuts and parts. So luckily for us 3rd Gen 4Runner owners, there's lots of aftermarket manufacturers, and this is yet another option you have for a rear bumper on your rig. It's pretty nice. Check out the way the spare tire carrier opens up. It's got the nice shock absorber where it opens it up for you. You don't have to use your strength to swing it open. And then this is how it closes. Feels nice and solid on there. Seems like a pretty nice bumper. With all that said, we thank you for watching Toyota Time with Timmy the Toolman and Sean, and special returning guest Tony. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. If you have any questions or comments, do that below. Take care. Bye-bye. Sick mods and sick bumpers.